We'll introduce ourselves.
We'll call the meeting to order and then go from there. All right, so it is 6:13, calling the meeting to order. And thank everybody for being here. I know it's rather chilly today. And Don, where you're sitting, I can't see you. You're hiding behind the podium. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know about that. So first and foremost, we're going to introduce, let's do a couple of introductions because we have some new people, and then we'll get into the main agenda.
Sounds good. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Brianna Sote. I still say new because it's only been 5 months, even though it feels way longer. The Community and Economic Development Director. I got here August 19th was my first day. And we have the third day. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello guys, my name is Connor Ford. I'm the new senior planner here, first week, but I grew up in Indian River County and I have some experience doing private sector planning as well as the public sector in Sebastian, so excited to serve you guys as the senior planner. Nice to meet you.
And on that note, I should add, I am new to Florida. We moved here in July because my husband's a captain in the Space Force, and so that brought us here. But I've been a Community and Economic Development Director in the state of California, and in the planning, I actually came up through planning in the states of Georgia and South Carolina. So feel like I'm back home, even though it's just a bit of a drive. So on that note, I'm still learning processes, things that are unwritten or written in our lengthy code. And so there is an amended agenda in front of you. One of them, both of them I just personally found out about today. The first one being that our code requires the deputy city clerk, because we don't have a city clerk at the moment, deputy city clerk advised me just today that we have a requirement to elect a chairperson and vice chairperson at the first meeting of every calendar year. So, take it away.
Very exciting times. If you want to go ahead and call a roll so we can have everybody attending. And then we actually have a public participation card, so we'll do that after that.
Vice Chairman Hermanson?
Present.
Chairman Mays?
Present.
Board Member Patridge?
Present.
Board Member Seda?
Present.
Board Member Smith? Board Member Taylor?
Are we on? That's okay. No. Nope. There we go. Good evening, Don Willis, 8984 Puerto Del Rio Drive, Cape Canaveral. I just wanted to step up and thank you all for your participation with our city and our boards, and for your sacrifice to be here and for all that you do. I know that it is a drain on your time when you have so many other things to do with business, personal, family. And I just wanted to say that we appreciate it very, very much, and thank you. And I hope we can do some very good things in the new year. Thank you.
Makes me all happy. All right, we have a little bit of old business. We have some minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, minutes approved. That was 10 minutes. All right, so new business as amended. We have an election for chair and vice chair by majority vote at the first meeting. Barely have quorum, so
We'll make a motion on Mays to stay as chair.
Second.
I think you need to vote on the floor.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We also need a vice chair. Would anybody like to make a motion in
motion that we keep our current vice chair, Tom.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Hermanson. Congratulations, Ms. May. We already went ahead and did our next. Beautiful. This is from a while ago. We had a couple of hiccups in our thing. New board member interview. Come on down. You're the next contestant. Where do you want? Right over there. Great.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carolyn Serbin. I've owned property here in Cape Canaveral since 2006. What would you like to know about me?
Do you live in Cape Canaveral?
Yes. Yes, since 2006.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your interest in the board and what you think specifically, like job or previous experience you think would be really relevant.
Okay, I'm an MBA from the University of Florida. I've owned my own business. I've also managed newsrooms across the country. I'm a retired journalist. You need to know that. My association with boards like this usually has been sending a reporter. But I'm very familiar with how boards operate. During a break in journalism, I was on the Education Commission for the city of Germantown, which is outside of Memphis, when we lived in Memphis. I am very interested in Cape Canaveral maintaining its coastal small town vibe, but I also recognize that we need to get the slice of the tourism pie as well. So I guess that's my main interest in getting involved.
What business are you in? You said you were in business or just owning real estate?
No, I owned a business. I
Oh,
owned and
owned a business.
operated a business. It was a transportation business.
Okay.
It was something that when I was in business in grad school, one of the class projects was come up with your own business, sort of like Fred Smith did with FedEx. I was not nearly as successful as Fred Smith and FedEx, but I had a transportation company for children because that was something that my kids needed at the same time. I mean, at the time, and it was sort of like Uber for kids before Uber. And I did that for several years, and then I went back into journalism, and I retired from journalism.
Yes, and city code requires you all to interview the candidate prior to city council considering them.
Yeah, we didn't get to do that before because they all interviewed us because we were reorganizing the board. So this is the first time we did this. So very exciting. Well, thank you, Carolyn, for your interest and very interesting. I don't think we have to vote or anything, correct? And you also get to see us in action, which we haven't done as much lately. So due to a number of reasons, but that's all right. All right, discuss economic development strategy is the next item on our agenda. Development and strategy. You want to
Sure thing.
roll some stuff out for us on this?
Yes. Of course, I came in new, and I saw in the budget for the city that we have $50,000 this current fiscal year to fund an update to the EDAP, the Economic Development Action Plan, and I saw that that's been discussed by this very board within the past year. It was updated nearly 15 years ago, so as you can imagine, a lot has changed since 2010. Environmentally, public health-wise, and local industry and the focus on it and the economy related to it. So the EDAP is outdated. Now, the city has its comprehensive plan, and the significance of it is that any development that comes before any of the boards, the city code has a list of findings that are required in order to approve, and that includes conformance with the comprehensive plan. In the staff report, I listed out what those elements are. For example, land use or transportation, infrastructure, housing. There's a number of them, and the state requires it, actually. And we have exactly, in our comprehensive plan, the same elements that the state requires. The state also allows additional ones, and one of the most popular additional elements that a lot of cities have found success with, in my research at least, is the economic development element. So knowing what I know and looking at economic developments and looking at the existing EDAP that the city has, they're structured basically the same exact way. There is research performed, looking at the economy, looking at local factors that contribute to recommendations for how the city can move forward in its goals related to economic development, and list them at, the grand product of the document in the study, which includes public engagement as well, is goals, objectives, and policies, or actions, kind of titled differently, really across jurisdictions even. So what staff is proposing is to be able to use the 50K that was allotted for the EDAP update, but it's virtually the same product. It's just a benefit because the comprehensive plan by code and by state statute is actually enforceable when developments come in. Right now, the EDAP, it's not mentioned in our code. It's kind of a document that we have, but there's nothing requiring any part of it in any process, at least that I have found or that others have advised me of. So staff recommends that we begin an RFP for a consultant to perform those services. Of note, the existing EDAP says that the city will hire a person dedicated to economic development. Right now, I'm the only person with economic development in my duties, and Connor helps, or will be helping. And so that has not been done. So that's another reason why this would require a consultant to come in, especially having the time, the bandwidth, the expertise to conduct such a study and gather community input and business community input and adjacent jurisdictional input. So if you have any questions, we're available.
I have a question. Okay, so if the comprehensive plan is enforceable, but the plan for this economic development plan is not enforceable, then...
I don't know that it's not enforceable. What I do know is that any developments that come through for review for any type of discretionary approval require conformance with the comprehensive plan, which is all the elements.
Comprehensive plans are usually broader, sort of higher level elements with sub-elements that are either strict in their conformance, what you can build where, zoning, but then there's also sort of multi-step plans. This economic development plan will be more specific. They're usually more specific than a comprehensive plan.
So if you look at our comprehensive plan, it has that broad overarching general goal or vision, an objective, and specific actions that the city can take to achieve those goals. And so that would be the idea for the EDAP or economic development element as well.
I guess we have a plan, but it doesn't seem like it was a very important document for the city to me. So we would be developing another plan, but I question whether or not it would actually be used.
If I can make one more clarification, the existing EDAP would be the starting point for this document and saying, okay, are these policies the city would like to carry forward? Should they be amended? Should they be reversed? Who knows what the consultant might find through studies and public input.
Other questions?
We're going to spend $50,000. That's our budget. Maybe we won't spend that. Maybe we will. But that's $50,000. That's a lot of money. So if we're going to do it and put forth the effort, I would want it to actually be something important, not something that just sits on the shelf that nobody looks, which is kind of the impression that I've gotten of the plan that's 15 years old, because if it was really an important document, I think it would have been renewed before now.
Excellent point.
In the previous meetings, there was a matrix where the staff had addressed some of the issue, a lot of the issues that had been followed, guidelines over those years and that had been accomplished. And there were a lot of aspirational things that, were not yet accomplished, usually due to budgetary restraints.
Okay.
So to your point, I didn't get the impression that it was something that staff wasn't familiar with, and probably city commissioners or council members in the city weren't familiar with, based on what the staff presented at earlier last year.
And at the time, that was actually how Todd Morley was originally hired, he was the economic development director.
Okay.
So that's actually how that was his first job with the city. So, so I know that the plans had emphasis and less emphasis, and emphasis and less emphasis. I think an RFP is not a bad idea. I'm curious to see what we can get for 50, just because depending on how extensive of a document we end up with, that may just give us enough to get us through the initial phases of the agreement. We may not need enough to get a full study done, depending on how big you want it, especially if you want to attach it to the comprehensive plan. And the way if I'm understanding staff request there, that makes it a little bit more has to be done with that document than just something coming out of the city. Would that have to go through council?
A comprehensive plan update would, yes. And to mention, the requirements of it, from what I've read in state statute, all of the language on it, it doesn't have actual specific requirements for non-required elements. It obviously gets very specific with all of the required elements. For example, City Council just heard the peril of flood updates to 2 of the elements. Also of note that when you update a comprehensive plan element, the elements talk to each other, or at least they should, and ours seem to. So sometimes update of one might trigger another or something, and it's an opportunity maybe to double up with updating another element. I've received interest from Molly Thomas, our Parks, Recreation, Community Affairs Director, in updating the Parks and Rec element. Obviously, land use might get updated as a result, as one of the recommended actions related to the economic development element should it occur. Just things to think about. It's also a project that would not be completed this fiscal year. So your next item is considering projects for the future, just to consider.
So after 15 years, I think it's probably due for an update, and we'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation to seek RFPs to update the EDAP.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next step. All right. Discuss Community Redevelopment Agency fiscal year 2025-2026 projects.
Could you bring up the PDF?
Oh, there we go.
If you started, yeah. So this is more of an open-ended discussion item that the Community Redevelopment Agency Board, we have a couple members observing the meeting, recommended that we get ahead of the upcoming budget process when it comes to the CRA projects. So right now, no decisions need to be made. This is just kind of brainstorming, discussion, get your thoughts, opinions, priorities, really gather that information, digest it. Eventually, meet again, present it to the CRA board as part of the budget process, as opposed to kind of afterward, so that we make sure the city is in the direction it's looking to go.
Question?
So, sorry.
No.
I was just going to say, just for your reference, I attached a few, or what you see is a few documents from our current budget. This is the CRA specifically. budget, you see under capital outlay, what has been budgeted prior to and up to this year. And then the next image for reference is beyond this year. Per project, you can see what is currently adopted to kind of use as a base. And then I just wanted to update you as part of this. The state had a new requirement that cities, community redevelopment agencies need to establish measurable objectives for every project that it undertakes within its budget, and a way to measure success and report on it annually. So the next document, if you had by chance been following along to the city council meeting of December 17th, 2024, it was CRA meeting of December 17th, 2024. This was presented and accepted by the CRA board, and it will be updated annually after each budget is adopted. So just some information on the projects, establishing, okay, what's the point of project A? And okay, if we meet this thing about it, we've been successful or we failed. Here's why we failed. Here's how we were successful, for example. And then is there one more, or is that it? Okay, yes. The last one's for the other item.
Question? So I heard you just state the CRA has already adopted this budget for the current budget year.
That's correct. In effect, October 1st of last year through September 30th of this year.
Right.
And we had requested to be part of the conversation for the next budget, because remember the budget came to us with, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we were like, that's nice. We didn't get any time to talk about options. So I appreciate them coming to us about the coming budget, as to have the ability to talk about that, because that's an improvement. Thank you.
Well, then all I have to add is the CRA did a great job. Good job.
Good job.
I've got a question for Councilman Willis. Out of curiosity, since I wasn't able to participate in the CRA discussion, this was my only question. I read through the background on the various projects. What was the discussion on that concession stand and the amount that ball field gets used? And are there rec leagues? Like, I don't hang out in that part of town, on weekends and stuff. How much is that field used, and how much will that concession stand be used?
Well, currently, the concession stand is not being used.
Right.
Because it's outdated.
Right.
I have to be careful of what I say, because we're still going to be voting on some of these things in the future. But the capital improvements put the estimate at $350,000, I believe, for that facility.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just, a cover yourself, make sure we have enough in it. To your question of the use, it doesn't get used that much, really.
Yeah, no, all the other projects made perfect sense, but when I reflected on that one, I wondered about the sort of return to the community for that investment for a concession stand. It really comes down to, are there little leagues that are consistently out there, and using that field and will raise money for the community and for their teams and all that?
We have a local team
Mm-hmm.
that uses the facility, uses the field. There are other teams that want to from the area, but it is limited in the age that you can use because of the size of the field
Mm-hmm.
and the damage that it does for every ball that goes over the fence.
Mm-hmm.
So it does have somewhat of a limited use.
I thought about a food truck,
Well, that was discussed, but it has been a project that has been on the books for a number of years.
Okay.
And has kept getting pushed back. So,
Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
What other, so I understand correctly, staff is wondering if there wants us to brainstorm regarding other ideas that we think to consider going to the future CRA. And one of the things we talked about in previous meetings from this board's perspective was there was a lot for residents. There was in the CRA, which I totally understand, but especially with the Preservation Streets program, which is portion of that proposed revenue, but there did not seem to be a lot of focus on things that were business and economic development ideas or things to help business owners in who own property in the community or to attract other future businesses into the community, be it small business, large business. I mean, obviously, we've had an influx of new businesses coming in with the state center traffic and work and the cruise industry and how it's impacting our overall community. But the big question for me is anyone else on the board have ideas of things that would be really beneficial to, and I think about the small businesses as in, the bigger businesses, I think they should have opportunities always, absolutely too. But for the thinking on our smaller businesses or community owned businesses, if anybody have any ideas that they can thought of, or want to take some time when we come back for our next meeting, come back with a list of ideas would also be helpful. We've got time.
So isn't there like a committee for appearance or something? Like another committee?
Yes.
There's a community appearance board, yeah. And they handle landscaping requirements and signage and things like that.
It's any development that's 4 or more dwelling units or any commercial.
So they're a board that you have to, as part of your land development application process, have to go through the board to see if you meet requirements.
So they're not addressing what is already in existence?
No, they're
Okay.
addressing adherence to code, kind of like the
Right.
planning and zoning board.
Yes,
And future development, yeah.
It's a misleading name.
yes. We need to come up with ideas to make it look better on A1A.
So to provide a little bit of response in regard specifically to the business community's benefit from CRA funding. Okay, thank you. You actually already have it on the screen. I got the numbers from 2024.
On our screen set.
Yeah,
Oh, no?
We have the valuations.
Yes.
Okay, that's where you're at. You want to make sure we're on the right screen.
Yes. And then I added a trend line to it, and you can see we're exceeding that exponential trend line, which of course, as you all know, you're professionals, that's the point of a CRA. Going from 210 to 721 in, or basically 12 years, that exponential growth can be even more exponential if projects serve the types of developments that generate that increase. Right now, the only one I believe that the city has directly benefiting commercial is the facade improvement grant, which since Kyle's departure last September, Renee has graciously taken over and done a great job managing. We've already got approvals coming through for businesses on North Atlantic, and we have 2 next week. We have a CAB meeting a week from or next Wednesday, and there's 2 on that agenda on A1A. So that's $50,000 total, correct?
Not for those 2 projects.
Right, but total allotted each fiscal year for that currently in the budget. So that's the one thing that's happening right now, it's directly for commercial.
But to paint a building right now of any decent size, you're gonna, I just did it recently, you're gonna spend $75,000 to paint a building. That's anything, any decent sized commercial building, or a strip mall is gonna be, what, 125 probably? Easy. So that's where if we wanna work on improvements, I mean, the sign ordinance does some things to update signage and things like that, but, for $50,000 is great, but if we want to make substantial improvement on curbage, landscaping, painting, and those things make huge impacts on curb appeal, you're gonna have to put some decent dollars behind that. don't take that next step to paint a building because it is so cost prohibitive. And you've got a choice between doing A or B. And if you paint your building, you're going to go with A. So you absolutely have to paint the building. The other thing I would think about is also looking for events that are programs that focus on perhaps looking to increase occupancy rates in some of their commercial buildings that aren't fully occupied. We've got a couple still that are events with long-term vacancies in them. Perhaps an incentive I just keep throwing out ideas.
I think maybe broadening, I haven't read the definition of the requirements for the facade grant, but I think Dawn makes a great point that maybe broadening the allowable uses. Maybe that's something we can use. See, landscaping and tree planting is potentially another beneficial use. And, there's never going to be enough money to pay for somebody, nor should the city consider with public funds to pay for somebody's whole project. But, grant money can incentivize property owners of commercial properties that wouldn't otherwise, maybe not thinking about it, maybe not front of mind. I think that's a great idea.
No, but I like the idea of trying to help get the places rented so that when you drive down the road, you don't see just empty. Like a marketing, even just a marketing.
A lot of places are fully rented. It's certain buildings aren't. Did you have something you wanted?
It was more of a question, if we were expanding the commercial aspects to the CRA and just adding more projects there, would we also have to consider budget for advertising that, or is that something the city already does outside of the existing CRA budget?
For advertising the expanded program itself?
Yeah, so if we were adding more commercial programs to the CRA,
Yeah.
like all these ideas that we're talking about.
Yeah, so the existing program, it provides for a 50% match with up to a certain amount. I think it's $10K, yep, $10,000. And it's for specific things, and it is quite specific. So there's opportunity to expand the dollar amount, opportunity to expand the types of things the city will match. And that's something that your board can further refine next time we meet, what exactly those types of things are. And I can bring you what currently is in it now in a clear table.
But do we need to also look at allocating a budget to make business owners aware that there are increased opportunities, or?
And sorry, I did not answer your question at all.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yes, so Renee, you might actually be able to answer that question best, but I know so when the fiscal year started, the program reset, we did spend all the funds the prior fiscal year. And so I believe mailers were sent to. Thank you.
Yes. So last year, this year, since I've been here, we would send a mailer out to all the residents within the CRA or business owners within the CRA. And October 1st, people were asking, people were applying, and it does cover landscape. It includes landscaping, it includes painting, it includes fencing. It includes quite a bit, actually. The paint voucher is covered 100%, up to $5,000. The facade improvement is covered 50% matching what the owner puts in, up to $10,000. And I think last year we were just shy a couple of thousand from the 50,000 being fully used. And right now,
Program's working.
yes.
So expanding it would make a lot of sense because you've got a mechanism that's currently working and successful projects that could be talked about.
Yes.
And actually, Kyle, before he left the city, to the CRA board, I believe in September, presented a report on all of the successes of that fiscal year's program. So I'll be happy to share that with you all if we can find it in his drive. And we'll be doing the same probably this September as well.
So I love that because I think that moves us in the right direction because it's a program that's currently working. I think the other part is also an education of who's in the CRA and who's not, because that's the other part is that not the whole city is not in the CRA. So there may be properties outside the CRA which we cannot use CRA funds for. So we have to think through that also.
So on that note, is that mailer funded by the CRA?
It would be, yeah.
And here's another aspect of the CRA program. It is first come, first serve. So you put in your application, it goes through the process of getting approved, and then you submit all your receipts for reimbursement.
So might it make more sense to receive applications over a period of time and allocate the funds based on quality of submissions as opposed to just first person in the door?
There is a scoring system. So when each application comes in, it gets reviewed by Brianna, and it would get scored for whatever they're applying. I don't remember what the itemization is or the percentages for scoring, but they have to meet a certain.
It's pretty basic, honestly. One of them is, does it front A1A or North Atlantic, which is, that sounds like a priority, I'm guessing, but that's up to you all and the CRA board. So I'm going to pull it up, actually, because two of the items on next week's Community Appearance Board are for projects that applied for the grant. And, maybe that's opportunity to simplify the process because some people are likely applying for it in the first place because they need more resources, more bandwidth. And so making the process a little bit simpler, because I think a lot call, find out about it, and they're like, oh, that's a lot of work, but maybe not. So I'm going to just pull that up and okay, so here's the worksheet. I think there's 4 or 5 sections. So the first one is what percentage is the private contribution. Second one is location on the main streets. Third one is aesthetic enhancement, but it only talks about where. So you get more points if it's a principal building improvement and less points if it's just site improvement, according to this, and more if it's both. And then compatibility of proposed improvements to surrounding structures, you rate it good, fair, poor. And that's it.
In the application process, were there applicants that were rejected for low scores?
I haven't come across that. The only rejections that I've been aware of are just they're asking for something that does not qualify according to the provisions.
For example, we did deny one, part of it, and then they amended their plans, that they wanted to put impervious surface over grass. And that is not the direction the city is headed, so they amended it.
Well, and also that was their complete courtyard. It wasn't just a little slab. It was the complete courtyard, eliminating all the grass, all the shrubbery, any plant.
Yeah, no, I sit on the Tourist Development Council, and we have several grant programs, and we've massaged in our policies over many years, but effectively we have an application period for, say, cultural grants or sports grants, and they all come in within a defined time frame under specific criteria, and then they're graded, and then the best projects can receive more funds, and medium projects less, and projects that don't qualify receive none, so that you support the biggest impact projects with relative to tourist development tax funds.
That leads me to my next question. That leads me to my question of, were there applicants in the last several years who came in after all the funds had been, that you had internally used the funds?
There were only, that I can recall, maybe two.
Do you think that's awareness or just?
Some of the owners live out of state, so they're not quick to respond, or some of them like to be here, because there are requirements where they do have to take before and after pictures as well, and they're just not sure of what they want to do.
Or help more individuals with improving the
Question. Like a couple meetings ago, there was someone here explaining that A1A is going to be like renovated basically. So they're going to put trees in and make some areas wider, and the speed limit is going to be less. So is that going to be next year? Because it would be nice to be able to like time up, like we're going to make A1A look better, and we're going to make the facade, like the places look better, but I don't know.
DOT works in decades, not years.
Okay, well, we can forget
It's
that.
this decade or next decade.
I don't think it's had funding yet.
We have, no, the design has funding. So it's been in,
Oh,
it's,
so it's
what
not-
we saw was design.
Okay,
And Don is the resident expert, if you'd like to add anything, but it's currently in design, which means it can be in design for a long time. And then the local MPO, which is a local advising body to the DOT, ranks projects based on need within the county, within our district. We're in District 5. We're in District 5 in the state. And so you can have a ranking project that may be toward the top, but it can be superseded by more critical projects on an ongoing basis. So you never know. You get design dollars to design your projects, and then you have to wait for actual construction dollars. And it's a constant battle between competing needs, jurisdictions and the representatives from the various communities that fight for those dollars, because every city council has a representative on that board fighting for dollars for their district. Babcock, Ellis Road's probably going to eat up the majority of anything we have here in the area. The MPO committed $15 million to the train station at Cocoa, which probably pushed a number of projects further down the list. So it is in design. When it's going to happen is not yet determined. And having watched some of these projects languish on that list for over a decade, it's not next year.
Well, the A1A for
No.
in one form or another.
If the Port Authority gets their way and they do a new bridge to the north side of the port to eliminate the drawbridge, we can pretty much just forget any other project, because that's like $100 million.
Just to your point, I was in a meeting with FDOT this week, and the 528 resurfacing, not the widening, the resurfacing and A1A resurfacing have all been scheduled and given project numbers, and it looks like 2026 they'll be coming through. The bridge is going to be determined by SpaceX and other entities besides just FDOT. But to your point about the redesign, of the north half of A1A from North Atlantic intersection and International north to the port, that design was fully funded, but construction is just going to languish on that. It's just going to keep getting pushed back. So I don't anticipate anything moving on that till 28 or 29 at the earliest before they pick that back up.
okay.
Yeah, Ellis Road sat on the list after design for 5 years.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
it took
Ellis
'em-
Road ended up being an FDOT loan to fund, which is interesting that FDOT can borrow money from themselves and pay it back. I don't know how that works, but they seem to have done it.
They
So,
learn from the IRS.
yeah,
Well, when they got the interchange, the interchange at Ellis Road took 20 years, you know, and now you got to get the road to get to the interchange.
Hey,
It's a process, one thing at a time. It's a process.
Any other ideas to add from a brainstorming perspective of things for the CRA that, and it doesn't have to be business directly, it's other things that improve our community within the CRA that anyone else wants to add to the list of brainstorming for right now. And we can bring this back up at our next meeting also, as you're out in the community and looking at things that go, hey, what about this as an idea?
Right, so I lost track of what was going on with Nancy Hansen. So I think that's one thing, like the tennis courts and the pickleball courts that we could maybe look into. I don't know if we want to do it, but we should look into.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think your recommendation to the CRA board to potentially increase the funding for the commercial facade and landscaping and other grants is a good one, because $50,000 at $5,000 to $10,000 a pop, that's not a lot of improvement in a budget year. And, you know, I can tell you firsthand that this chart that we're looking at is compounded by some aggressive assessment increases year over year on the commercial properties by our very lovely property appraiser. It's been 10% a year now, going on 6 years, 7 years. We saw a little bit of relief during COVID. That was 1 year. But other than that,
The flat part here.
yeah, I don't see anything flat on there.
I was trying to be funny.
It's 10% a year. So, but it's a virtuous circle when there's new things being built and other commercial property owners see other commercial property owners improving their properties, then the tendency is that rising tide lifts all boats. So the more that can be done in that vein, I think the overall community will benefit. You get nicer buildings, you get nicer businesses, you get better services.
Which in scale helps the entire community, business community, and residents, which is the goal. All right.
Is this a topic that we can officially add on the agenda for our next meeting too? Because there's some, I don't even want to call them ideas right now because they're not very well thought out, but there are some things I'd like to explore
Yes.
to bring up for the next meeting. Okay.
I think it's something we should continue to talk about, because they just started their budget year in October.
August.
Doing the budget process.
Staff work begins end of March, I was just advised.
But the real meat of it for council, somewhere around July or August. All right, so that sounds great. Our next thing is to talk about our, anything else further, anyone? All right, great. Our next thing is to talk about our next board meetings. Last year, we were working on a quarterly schedule. And we are scrolling. That's about it.
So I have a proposal for government efficiency. This is just draft, that's why I didn't print it out. It's not for circulation. It's conceptual, but could be real. I'm finding a lot of staff time spent, because we have to, gathering quorum for meetings and identifying what dates work for people. And so we also have, for boards that consider applications, we don't have deadlines. So that's resulted in a lot of canceled meetings recently as people don't get us stuff in time. It's just a lot of loose, not much structure that would save staff, applicants, boards, anyone attending a lot of time. So my proposal is, and Todd is on board to eventually present this, but I'm presenting this to every board that the next time I meet with every board, and you all are the first. We have in our code the required days or time of certain boards. but some of them are not in code. One of the things that I've found in gathering, not just quorum for the board, but also the public or staff, is that Thursday nights are a lot more tough than Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I don't know you all, I don't know your history in having these meetings. I did hear it was quarterly, so in here, this, again, just thinking out loud, really, established, you see the red is BED board, quarterly, actually. And I also, in just looking at those dates, just to give you context, the gray, this room is either reserved for the Parks and Rec board or a holiday, city holiday. And then the other colors, as you can see, correspond to the other boards that my department manages, and I don't think that there are any others, and evenings, I should say. So I looked at the budget schedule on staff's end, as well as in public meetings from last year, and the proposed schedule that City Council's adopted for this year, and tried to time it in advance of those and alternate bed board meetings with CRA meetings. The CRA meetings are in green, so you can see red, green, red, green, red, green. Obviously, you all are, we need quorum, so whatever input you all might have, but this way we hope we'll have higher attendance, because people could clear their schedule far in advance for that date, or I should say reserve, because you all are very busy, particularly this board is very busy. So, any input or suggestions?
I do have a question, and I don't know how difficult or unpopular I'll be for making it. But with as many cancellations as we saw last year, is there any appetite or ability for this board to meet like every other month? So when we do inevitably have cancellations, we're not waiting 8 months to meet again?
Sure.
I think it'd be a lot easier for us to at least have a few meetings a year if we're meeting more frequently.
Do we have somewhat of a consensus on that?
Well, you mentioned budget, which is why, like for meetings, which is the only reason why I ask. I don't know if that's something we can vote on tonight, or if that's something you guys have to go back and evaluate at all.
In a perfect world, I am hoping to walk away with dates locked in for 2025 for y'all,
Okay.
but then to bring it to the other boards as well.
Okay.
You get to go first.
You get to go first.
Great. I think that maybe like January and March is better than April. Or like maybe not every other month, but maybe the whole summer off, and then making sure that the meetings happen like sooner. People go away for the summer or whatnot.
Well, I mean, I think if we did every other month, I mean, if somebody can't make it in the summer, but ideally we're meeting more frequently, we can have more of a quorum and meet the quorum every time we meet.
Well, I see, yeah, because if we did January, March, May, skip June and July, August, October,
5 meetings.
5 meetings instead of 4 meetings.
Can I repeat that back to make sure I've got it? You said, so obviously January right now, and then you said March, May, September, sorry, March, May, August, October? Okay.
August, October.
Okay.
I'm having trouble reading the calendar. The Community Appearance Board, it says first and third Wednesday of the month, but it's only showing on
Yes.
the first.
Yeah, it's only on
And-
once.
And so I didn't mention this because you all don't review specific applications that the community submits for development. But for those boards, those nights would be reserved, this room would be reserved, people's calendars would be reserved for those meetings. But if we don't have any applications for consideration, they wouldn't meet. So for some reason, whenever this came about, the CAB, it was adopted actually into our city code that they would meet either the first or third Wednesday of every month. We do not nearly have enough applications, nor do we have the staff bandwidth to process applications 24 times a year. And in my research and conversation, historically, they've met no more than once a month, all of those boards.
So that's why you have, like in February, for example, the 26th and 27th held, but not colored. That's what you're calling gray.
So.
There's a lot of
this-
purple on here. I can't tell the different
Yeah,
shades
the
of purple.
screen doesn't exactly look like it when it prints out. But yeah, so purple is the Board of Adjustments. They hear variances, which are very rare, as you all know, in development. They would be the fourth Wednesday of every month if they occur. The 27th, in February, as you mentioned as the example, the fourth Thursday of every month is the Parks and Rec Board meeting. So those are out completely for us.
Councilman, do you want to say something?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I won't be speaking for Councilmember Jackson, but for myself, and when we tasked the bed board with contributing to the CRA discussion and how we would budget, it seems to me that if you could spend more time meeting prior to when we start talking about the budget in early summer, that would be most beneficial.
So March and May would,
Well, it maximize as many meetings as you could would be
Early in
most
the year.
beneficial to council.
Yeah, early in the year.
Yeah, earlier in the year, because once September comes around, we're pretty much almost locked in on everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, it would be more valuable to get your input earlier in the year, if possible. Thank you.
What would you want, to do if you were to enough cadence to include July and September?
I think if I hear Councilman Willis that Goose is cooked in September for the input that they're looking for here, so try to squeeze in some meetings here in the first half of the year and then.
and you can see in this too, that our city council has already adopted their schedule, which includes August 19th, September 2nd, and September 16th as budget meetings. So August 19th would be the first city council meeting. I know workshops occur, CIP workshops occur as early as April last year, but that's the start of them.
Well, all of that in mind,
Is this going to be very unpopular?
No.
I suggest every month's cadence.
well, I was,
That's not gonna happen.
Forum some months, we're probably not meeting 12 times a year.
well, I was also considering, January through May, every month, and then looking at June or July, one of those, and then August, one of those, like have a month that in the summer that was off, and then, we could schedule a monthly meeting and just have like 1 month off in the summer.
And one more thing to consider is now that the economic development element RFP will be starting, you all will be involved in those meetings. Yes, public meetings, input and stuff.
I would like to make a motion then, if we have to vote on this, to do it every month, get into the break for the month of June.
Well, you gotta check with staff there.
Could you repeat that? You said,
Every month cater to the break in June.
so 11 meetings, not including June.
Well, and then not, you're talking about the first half of the year, not the second half of the year?
That was my understanding.
What's, I mean, I know budget is done by October, but what's the hesitation to meeting in October, November? Unless we
Only,
took off maybe December or something like that.
only because I don't know that there's that much to discuss.
What about 8 meetings?
I'm not sure what we'd cover.
Either June or July, depending on staff recommendation based on timing, with either June or July off and then December off. What do you guys think about that? So a total of 8 meetings,
I think that would be 10.
10, sorry, 10. A long day. 10 meetings with the 2 months off. And if we are, like, if staff doesn't have stuff for us, we release the day early.
Yeah.
But I
That-
have a feeling based on
If you all would like to, we're here to serve in that capacity, so yes.
On staff?
Well, I think the critical point there, not to interrupt, is that if there's nothing to discuss, we don't call a meeting.
And so, well, so the other boards who consider applications, their deadlines would be a month prior to support, because staff has to do research, analyze the project, write the staff report, get legal review, all the different departments have to review, which is common practice in other jurisdictions as well. And so this one would be similar, although there's no application, we would know a month in advance whether that next meeting will have items or not. We'll probably know more than a month in advance, and so you would know. The idea is that we have quorum, these items, excuse me, these meetings are reserved on the board's agenda as part of, the commitment to being on the board and whatnot, with hopes that that quorum doesn't really become an issue. Of course, that's a perfect world.
So, I guess before,
And just based on my experience on other boards, July is normally the month where everybody's gone. So if there was going to be a summer month that you'll most likely not get a quorum, it's going to be July.
So instead of meeting on Thursdays, somebody wants to meet on Wednesdays. I don't think I can commit to meeting on, I would be late a lot. That's the only day I have a problem with.
So Wednesday is your no day, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably be able to get here by 6:30 or 7 if. Some days I could get here at 6, but I'm just saying in general, Wednesdays are kind of a problem.
Duly noted, and for me, Wednesday or Thursday or Tuesday are pretty much, I have some other board commitments, I have to dance around some of those, but depending on what else is going on. What about y'all's schedules for Tuesdays and Thursdays?
If I'm here, it's not a problem, but I'm gone a lot,
Yeah,
as are you.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I have a work trip on the books every month already this year. So,
that's why I kind of like Thursdays, is because if I'm traveling, I'm flying back on Thursday usually.
So, do we have new members coming on?
We have one, hopefully, or I guess hopefully, should council confirm it. Mhm.
Any preference on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if council approves it?
I have the luxury of being retired and I'm quite flexible.
Love it.
Maybe on the quorum issue, maybe appointing, is it restricted to 5 members? I don't know if that's ever come up. With 7 members, as long as you have 4, and there's no disagreement, which I don't see there being much disagreement on this board based on the subject matter. Maybe that's a thought.
Yeah, I was having a similar thought too.
7 seats up here,
Yeah.
and we don't need an attorney.
I believe that would be a code change, which we can do. Of course, we'll bring the idea to,
Yeah, because we're appointed by council.
Try to reserve my, I try to reserve my code changes to really important projects, so I strike that.
Remove that idea.
I've got some applications coming up here. I'll
Yeah.
save my powder.
So Wednesdays are no for you, and I totally respect that. And looks like Thursdays are pretty hard to get the room on the weeks that you've had us, except some of them.
Well, the first Thursday seems to be available in the first half of the year when the students getting prepared before budget.
Yeah, first Thursdays do look pretty good.
If if you made it for Wednesdays at 6:30 instead of 6.
I think that would increase participation of public as well, because the nature of the board is business related, so a lot of people are running businesses throughout the day.
6 or 6:30 doesn't make a difference for me.
So I'm looking third, it looks like the third Thursday.
Well, it's
Hey,
just
Wednesday, it looks like the,
she get it on
it looks like the
Wednesday.
third Wednesday, no, the 14th of May is gone.
No, it's the second Wednesday.
I think this is challenging because we're trying to fit into your boxes there. Personally, if I'm in town, it doesn't matter Thursday or Tuesday or Wednesday, so maybe for this board, since it meets so infrequently, twice last year,
That's what we're talking about.
maybe we can sort of, if we look 60 days out, that gives the public and everybody ample notice, and then we leave it to staff based on your workload to schedule us for a Wednesday or a Thursday. That gives you, with this board, it's this, in the pecking order here, you can,
So the idea, because this exact conversation we're having now, Renee has one-on-one with every single person every time the board wants to meet, which I know was just 2 times last year, but you have interest, the council has interest in this board meeting more frequently, more regularly. So one thought is potentially, one thing also, just knowing that our department of 15, multiple people are involved in the other boards. And so it's a lot of evening meetings for us. So just having back-to-back is tough, but maybe the week that there's council, which is the third Tuesday, maybe meeting on that Thursday. But I did receive that feedback on Thursdays being an issue. For example, May 22nd, that's the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. A lot of people will probably not be available. Most holidays are Mondays and the end of the month.
I mean, is the fourth,
I'm leaning towards the first week of the month in general,
On Tuesday or Thursday?
on Thursdays. Or well, I could do a Tuesday also, actually, Tuesday's not bad.
So then we just take like 4th of July, like the month of July off, and we do that. That works.
Yeah, because we were talking about July
Yeah.
anyway.
Right.
And probably taking September off because those are the budget hearings, I'm gonna guess.
yeah, there probably won't be a reason to meet in October, November, December.
We can put a- we can
Budgets-
put a-
the
we can put a
budgets.
note
On the
books,
calendar and
on the
cancel.
calendar to reserve the space so that we have it, but
Yeah.
then we can adjust, we can assess when we get to August, September as to the meetings that we've got the space reserved. I do know right at this moment that the meeting in June, I would need vice chair to be in charge.
June 3rd.
I know that for sure off the top of my head. But the rest of them I'm pretty good.
I will say that date is an efficiency improvement because that's the same date, the first Tuesday, that all staff reports get drafted for that month's council meeting. We have a 2-week lead time, so quite timely.
So you're saying you like that?
I think so.
Well, I'm very sensitive to staff's productive use of time,
Absolutely.
so I'm leaning toward productive meetings, not just meetings for the sake of meeting.
or can I amend the motion that's on the floor then? Meeting?
We'll meet on April Fool's Day, which will be fun.
So what you're saying is, or if I understand you correctly, first Tuesday of the month is good for staff based on your schedule otherwise, or bad? You said it with a smile, which threw me off.
I know.
You're like, we're so busy on Tuesdays because we're putting all of our packages together, but then I got the impression you were saying that's a good day.
So I'm a very open person, and I'll just say it. Having, for example, this fall, I had public meetings 3 nights in a row. Not good for staff's wherewithal during the day. So not have meetings back to back is, day after another. Of course, then you're restricted when there's no Monday or Friday meetings. So we don't know for sure that we're going to have CAB and P&Z and all these other board meetings. The most likely is CAB and P&Z. That's a lot of alphabet. The Community Appearance Board is probably the most frequent, would you say, Renee?
The most frequent?
Yeah.
P&Z.
Oh, P&Z, okay. BOA is very rare. That's looking at the last Wednesday. We can switch BOA and P&Z and they'll never know because this is just a draft. And that's already reserved under code.
You're the second week. Correct?
Yes, second and fourth Wednesday. And so,
Yeah, so,
Us being the week before that is actually good.
so first week is your least busy week. This is not a board that you're going to be preparing as much for as those other boards. Those are going to be these kinds of discussions that might.
that's fair.
And so, first week, you're looking at a whole year, it's fine. So you're saying, looks like the first Wednesday is taken already by the appearance board.
And that's in code, but we don't want to do the 3rd because that's the day after the council meeting.
I think we were looking at what, first Thursday still,
We're looking at first Thursday or
and then
Tuesday.
take July and September off. And do we want to stick to the 6 PM time? If,
Are you good with 6 on Tuesday? Yeah. Fine, 6.
So if I can
Staff
repeat
has-
that back to make sure I've got
Well,
that.
we're looking at either the first Tuesday or Thursday at 6 PM every month except for July and September. Does staff have a preference between Tuesday and Thursday?
Tuesday. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we're in the Labor Day week, that first week. So yeah, September.
Caveat that these are placeholders and that you're going to call meetings where actually something to discuss.
Right, we will have an established lead time, because we have to for applicants. It'd be a month, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I'm kind of testing out which of those is best, but y'all would be subject to that same exact lead time deadline on our end. So you'll know for sure a month. You might even know further in advance, though. Is a month all right lead time?
Month is good for me. Anytime.
Okay.
As an applicant, it's tough to deal with, but yeah.
Yeah, we gotta talk.
All right, I think we have it.
I'll amend my motion for us to meet monthly on the first Tuesday at 6 PM with taking the months of July and September off. Scheduling as needed in terms of quorum
Second.
and need.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We started a little late, so I think we're doing great.
Efficiency.
I'll entertain any further business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
There's prerogative, just gavel it.
I know I can't. I like to be nice. You wanna go? We can go.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
So I've heard your name all over.
Oh, that's not